I thank Senator Vitter for introducing this amendment. It follows the idea of the bill that I introduced a few weeks ago that is now S. 1688, the Fairness and Representation Act. My bill obviously will not pass before we get so far down the road to deal with this issue, so it's appropriate for the amendment to be offered, and we can accomplish the same thing with the amendment that would happen if my bill were to pass. Now, since my bill was introduced, I've had three primary objections to it, and I'd like to deal with each of those because they would probably be raised with respect to this amendment as well. Number one, people say, you cannot ask citizenship on the census. You cannot ask somebody who is an illegal alien to identify himself or to admit that he is here illegally when you're doing the census calculation. Well, it may surprise some people to know that the Census Bureau already does ask this information. It collects it on the ongoing American Community Survey. That is not as comprehensive as the entire census. If it were, we wouldn't need to do it here. But the Census Bureau already has a track record of asking this question without running into that particular difficulty. The information collected by the census is 100% confidential under penalty of law, and the census takers can make that clear to any individual who might be concerned about that. So that's not a major problem. Number two, people say, well, since the census data are used to determine funding levels for the variety of programs, and since the illegal aliens get involved in the funding, if you do this, you'll be cutting funding for state programs that service the illegal aliens, and that's not fair. The reality is this amendment and my bill does not cut funding. There is nothing in the bill that would say that funding formulas would change. This is an attempt to find out how many illegal aliens we have in this country and where they live as a statistical information, which we do not fully have now as a result of the American Community Survey. We have a hint at it, the American Community Survey, but we are extrapolating for that and we're making a guess. Since the census is our once every 10-year attempt to discover what America really is like, who the Americans are and where they live, it seems to me very logical that the census should add this particular piece of information to it. Well, after these two arguments have been made and dismissed, the third argument that we get, and we get this most strongly from the people at the Census Bureau, is, well, it's too late. It's too bad. Should have brought it up earlier, Senator Bennett, but we've already started to print our surveys. We can't go back and reprint them, and it's too late. Well, I wonder if they've ever thought of printing an extra sheet, printing an extra card. You don't have to reprint the whole survey if you have one additional question that you want answered. I've seen books where there have been errors in the book that have come out after the book has been published, an errata sheet that says on page so-and-so, this particular thing is not correct. It's not that big a deal for the Census Bureau to do some kind of addendum that could be printed and made available so that we could solve this particular problem. All right, aside from knowing, what do we intend to do with these data if we in fact get them? Well, in my bill, and Senator Vitter made reference to it in his discussion of this amendment, I want to use the data to deal with the question of the apportionment of the voting power in the House of Representatives. If we go back in history, we find that there was no more controversial issue in the writing of the Constitution than the question of representation in Congress. Small states wanted it by state, large states wanted it by population. The Great Compromise came along that created this body and said that the Senate would be represented by, membership in the Senate would come by state, and membership in the House of Representatives would come by population. But it was left up to the state legislatures to determine how that population would be apportioned. Each state was given a number of representatives based on its population, but the state legislatures could determine where the lines were drawn and how the districts would be created. And we had a situation develop over time where states would draw a line and then simply leave it. People would move from one congressional district to the other, but the line would not be changed. And there was a situation where there were many congressional districts whose representation numerically was substantially less than that of some other congressional districts in the same state. This brought about a lawsuit. It went before the U.S. Constitution, and in the case of Reynolds versus Sims, issued in 1964, the Supreme Court gave us the one-man, one-vote rule that said the districts should be close enough in their population that in effect every voter had the same weight of representation in the House of Representatives. If we have this tremendous number of illegal aliens concentrated in a few states, we have an impact of changing the one-man, one-vote dictum of the Supreme Court. That is, a state with a large number of illegal immigrants will see to it that its voters have greater representation than voters where the illegal immigrants are not. And all we ask in this amendment and in the bill that I proposed is that the states be instructed to ignore, or pardon me, that the Census Bureau be instructed to ignore the presence of illegal aliens when allocating the number of representatives in the state. It will, as I say, has nothing to do with funding of programs, because the programs have to be funded where the people are, and we understand that. But I believe it entirely constitutional that the allocation of the congressional seats can be done on the basis of those who are here in a legal circumstance. As the senator from Louisiana has pointed out, this is not a trivial matter. There will be 8 states who will lose representation to 4 states if this is not done. 4 states that will be whose voters will be overrepresented in the House of Representatives because of the large population of illegal immigrants in those 4 states, and 8 states, maybe it's 9 states who will be underrepresented because of the fact that their voters do not happen to live in a state where there is a large population of illegal aliens. So I'm happy to join my colleague from Louisiana in co-sponsoring this amendment, and I hope that our colleagues here in the Senate will see fit to support it.